Here we go. All right. Looking forward to talking with Roberta Levine. Hey, Roberta, how are you?
Hey,
Uh,
good.
I'm really looking forward to this talk. For just transparency purposes, I need to tell everyone you're my cousin. Maybe I don't, but I'd like to,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of love in with us. So I'm excited to have you on the show today because you are such an amazing writer. You're such
thank you.
a creative person, and the today where less people are reading, and it's so much more important to write something that shares a story and can communicate a message so tightly, so succinctly, so effectively. The art of how to communicate, whether it's in writing or video or how you're communicating on your website, the written word can come in so many different forms. And so
Right.
I'm excited to kind of dive in and talk to you about that. So kind of it gets started. I mean, talk a little bit about, the power of the right words and storytelling.
Huh. Well, I think the right words are the ones that communicate the story, and I think it's really great. It's very effective to use active language and words that are kind of fun. Like I
Yeah.
love words. And so words that have some snap to them. I mean, that's really like just people. And I think words that make it also language that makes it not hard, but the picture is painted without effort by the reader.
Yeah, kind of give some examples on that because I think what you're talking about is, making reading fun. I always compare things to kind of USA Today, right? Where you can look at something and read something and be somewhat entertained, but also in less than 30 seconds get the point across.
Right. And I think that's a kind of like Time Magazine and USA Today, like they have a kind of language that they use and they edit first. They use a kind of style, right? So it's a style, it's like kind of like Ritz crackers. You know what it's going to taste like. You know you're going to get it. It's going to be easy. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I think that since there's so much information out there. We're reading so much on our computer that we kind of get blind to it. So I think what kind of catches people and gives them more dwell time on a website is if the story is authentic, the language feels authentic. We feel like there's a person behind it.
Yeah.
You know, right? Like USA Today it's really neutral. It's a really neutral kind of language, really stripped down journalistic language.
Yeah. And so let's talk about writing for a minute. I think sometimes people are scared to write, right? They're scared to
Oh,
kind of put their thoughts in writing, or they don't know how to write, or how to kind of get their point across. I'm a big fan. Behind every writer is a better editor and somebody who can help write additional, kind of make you look better. I have worked with you on many pieces where you have worked with me and or taken my work and made it to what I thought I made it, what I thought I wrote. And so it's such an art. But talk about just kind of diving into rights for initially.
okay. So the thing is just getting words on the page. We all have a really elevated a self-critic, and it's just writing it down, capturing your ideas in whatever way you can, jotting notes, if it's making bullets, or if it's just, closing your eyes and writing it. It's just writing down your ideas and shutting off the voice in your head that says, oh, this isn't good. It's just start with your idea. Maybe you're going to write about gym shoes and just keep writing,
Yeah.
and not stop and go back. Just go forward and
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. And so when you do sit down to write, can you kind of talk a little bit about kind of the creative space or the time? Because I feel like sometimes people say, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time to write. Is there like a routine or a ritual that you would
Oh,
recommend for writing?
um, I think, well, for me, I tend to listen to music that doesn't have text in it. So, but I love listening to music, and I happen to be just completely addicted to Bach. And I always believe he's going to help me. And I think people like the Mozart effect, I think there's a kind of thing where it just sort of helps your brain get organized or get quiet.
Mhm.
So I think whatever music, pulsing music helps you. And then also that give yourself a time frame. Like if you have a prompt, like I'm going to write about gym shoes for 7 minutes and literally set a timer, you'd be so surprised
Mm,
the wonderful the wonderful language and ideas and emotions that are going to come out. So I think a time frame is helpful because sometimes you feel like, oh, I could do this for hours, and just say, no, I'm going to do this for 10 minutes.
yeah.
I'm going to sit down with this idea for 7 minutes and then see what happens after that.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about. That is, I talk about a lot as a business coach, kind of time frames and deadlines and things of that nature to kind of. But I never. But you make a really good point. Like sit down and write for 5 minutes, right? Sit down and write for 10 minutes. Yeah. I remember when I was writing my book a few years ago, I would always sit down at the same time on certain days of the week and write, and it made a big difference. It made a big difference.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, if you're talking about that, I mean, like it's like, in the morning. For me, it's in the morning. Like if I don't
yeah,
get started in the morning, I'm not going to write that day, or I'm going to have to really bully myself into it.
yeah,
So I think finding the time of day where your mind is the most elastic or clear or just less broken up, right, by all the activities. I think
yeah,
that's a great time. And
yeah,
calling that sacred time, like this is my half hour to do this. And and turn off the phone, whatever you have to do to make that to secure that precious time and give
yeah,
it to yourself.
yeah. I think that's really important too. Talking about finding your sacred time, not only to write but really to do anything. I mean, it's I love the way that you put that. Talk about you. I saw a video that you did that talked about kind of how to write, and I thought it was so clever because it was so simple. It was complicated, right? And so, just kind of, can you talk a little bit about the art of writing?
Well, I think first of all, I think that the people that we tend to read are just magnificent writers, and we just think, oh my God, there's such an amazing writer, I could never write like that. And we also forget that there's people behind them, just like you were talking about, John. They talk to people, they have editors, people work with them. So we have to kind of put away our awe, our sense of awe for those people, and just think about, well, that everyone has stories they want to tell and that are significant. And um, finding that time and giving that time to yourself and just being quiet and turning off the judge, the critic. And so like what I was talking about in that video was I was thinking like we've all kind of been like sandblasted by those English teachers like in middle school and high school, and
Yeah,
you're supposed to diagram a sentence and it all becomes so like far away instead of like, it's just a noun, a verb, a direct object. There's just a complete sentence just has three parts, you
yeah,
know? He
I
hit
love
the
it.
ball. It's a sentence. And so then, once you bring it closer to yourself and you just say, oh, I can do this, or I can do this as good or as badly in this moment as is possible. Like the Brits have a great thing. They just say, do your worst. You
Yeah,
know, they're like just handling the critic and they're just saying, hey, this is your time.
yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, so let's rewind for a minute and talk about. I always love talking about people's passion and how they, got to where they are. Because I'm a big believer that success is never a straight line, and the path that gets us to where we are, it's a windy path, and I think it's hard to lay out, and I think moving forward in the world that we're in, it's going to be even harder for all these generations to kind of figure it out, and that's part of the exciting part. So what's your journey? What got you into the love of writing?
um, well, I was I, I was always I was always the sensitive kid, the one who was way too emotional, that like my parents were always like, my mother would always say, "Oh, you're going through a phase." And it was just like, no, help me. So when I was like 12, I was, with this group of girls, and it was all very tight and very emotional, and everything was very serious, and stakes were super high. And so I was over emotional, of course. And this gal came up to me and she said, "Why don't you just write it down?" And I did, and it calmed me down. And I've been writing in some form or other ever since. It
Yeah.
just, that's how I understand the world, is through words. Like, when I'm sure everybody has their own way that they process. And for me, it's just like, if I'm lying in bed trying to fall asleep, I got words going through my head. I'm telling myself a story. I see the words, that's how it works for me. And so I've used language and words ever since, to
Yeah.
make me happy, to entertain people, to make them laugh, to
Yeah.
get information across.
It's so interesting. I love I'm always fascinated by, I mean, we've known each other our whole, well, you've known me my whole life. I've known you most of your life. But it's always so interesting to me. I never knew that story about, when you're 12 years old, there's always kind of that guide somewhere along your path that says something that's so random, maybe unexpected, where you wouldn't expect it. And that moment had such a pivotal launch for you. And so, when I just want to go back to that moment, if you can, like when, what was her name?
Her name was Susie Katz.
Susie, when Susie said it to you, just even when she said it to you, it was like,
Yeah,
how did it resonate from the beginning?
totally.
Yeah.
Total aha moment. It was totally like, oh,
Yeah,
write it down.
right,
Oh, like somehow I could, because I think what writing does is it slows things down, right? Right?
right,
There's so much coming at us all the time. And right, we like focus, we drop into a more concentrated space, and we slow time down, which I think feels really good, to
right.
just step out of the maelstrom and
Yeah,
and focus on something smaller
right.
that
But I
seems
think,
seemingly small,
yeah.
that you
But
can
what I
get a
love
hold
about,
of.
yeah, but what I love about also is it's just, um, it's just simple advice. I think sometimes people are looking for this like grand sign or this grand
Yes.
advice when really if you're just kind of open to the universe and you're open to things, sometimes the simplest message has the biggest impact. When I was 18 years old and my dad said, "Hey, listen to these tapes. I think you'll get more out of these than you will college." Well, those shaped everything that I knew at that moment when my dad gave me the tapes, when I put my Walkman, my Walkman on. I
Right.
I knew at that moment that I would be doing that for the rest of my life, coaching, writing books, keynoting. I knew my path took a different, to get here, but I knew that's what I would be doing. So I always love those moments of kind of resonating. So let's talk about writing a little bit more. There's writing blogs, there's writing books, there's writing white papers, there's writing intros to posts that you put on social media. There's I think I may have said websites already, but there's
Emails.
there's marketing, there's emails, there's so many different ways of communicating today, right? Whether it's over the phone and having a script, whether it's email, whether it's social media, whether it's texting. How do you take the same message and make it right for each of the mediums in today's world?
I think it's about immediacy.
Uh-huh.
It's so how many seconds do you have? How many minutes, right? So it's immediately. It's like I can tell you one idea. I'm going to give you one idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. This one
Again,
idea,
right.
and
Keep it again, going back to kind of our theme of today, which is kind of keep it simple.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes I work for people and they want SEO words, and they'll want like 5 SEO words in an essay, and it's like, you know what? Just one. Let's just
Yeah.
one, maybe two, because they're related.
Yeah.
Because, to let
Well,
Google bring it up fast.
right. And then beta test one, see how it works. And then keep on moving it. But I think you're right. I mean, today people have an attention span less than a goldfish, right? So, I had somebody come speak to the group coaching group that I have, and he one of the things he was saying one of the things he was saying was that people don't read on the internet, they skim, and they don't watch videos as much as they listen to the captions. And so people are multitasking, and you really don't have a lot of time to grab their attention. So when it's that one thing, let's just talk about clarity of message for a minute. How much time, I don't know if this is really the question, but not so much how much time, but how important is it to have a clear message?
It's the ultimate,
Yeah.
right? You want to be like, you shoot that arrow and it flies straight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because just using that
Yeah.
analogy of the shooting the arrow, there's the tension, right, of pulling the bow back. You kind of catch somebody's eye. It looks dangerous. There's something sharp going to go, and then boom, it goes, and there's so much power behind it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
somehow like get an image and get some tension on it and send it out.
Yeah.
It's
That's a great visual. Yeah. Well, that's a great visual because it needs to be that powerful today, and it needs to be rememberable today. And then repeated, so it can begin to sink in. And so somebody who is, let's talk to the person who is needing to kind of ramp up their communications, right? And so when you look at a company and you were to audit someone, let's say a company who is kind of doing stuff but not doing enough, where do you recommend they start growing their communications, in which avenues, in which ways, etc.?
When I start working with them, I look at their website first,
Yeah.
because that's generally the first place someone goes. And then I talk to them about if I think that maybe they have too much language, there's too much verbiage, they should have more white space, or there should be just greater clarity in the first paragraph, in the first line. What do you do? What are you offering people? And just make that like stark, almost make it very clear.
Yeah. I think
hopefully engage the person who's reading it so they'll continue down the page.
Yeah.
And not bounce off.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about, because I think a lot of times people have too much stuff on their website, and it confuses the person who's there. But just being exactly like, hey, this is what I do, and this is what it means to you, and this is how you can buy it, right? Whatever that is. And so they have their website, and then what's next? What would you recommend someone get started? Is it, hey, writing some copy for some videos, writing copy for original content for blogs? What are your thoughts on growing a communication strategy?
I think all of those are good. Like if you have like a kind of a blog piece, it doesn't have to be long. A couple hundred words that's going to talk about some aspect of the business. And then if you can make a video, take the same text, adjust it a little, because now it's audio and not written, right? It's not read, it's listened to. And, a short video, right? A minute, 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then just keep torquing the language a little bit for each different medium. And then the emails you send out, they have to be really crisp and just grab someone's attention. And I think there also has to be, like, because we read so much text online, that we so much come across, there has to be something that feels kind of human and authentic there, that we can connect. They're sort of like, oh, wow, I rest here for a moment, or I'm connecting with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, yeah. Sorry.
That's what I was going.
Yeah. No, I think that's huge. Finding your authentic voice. Talk about how you can. I think sometimes people think to themselves, "Hey, I need to find somebody to write for me, to help me write, to edit for me, but how will they keep my voice?" right? So I'm somebody, I write a ton, but I also have editors, and you work with me as well on, but you understand my voice. And so it's important for people, as you know, to find people to that can actually know your voice and not be scared of, you know, having people help you. They just need to understand your voice. So talk about how you connect with people, so you understand their voice, so you can really help them.
Well, I love the voice. I love people's voices. Like it communicates so much to me. They're so resonant with information and feeling. And I think that one thing there is a tension between wanting, because we've all been brought up on a kind of neutral speak, right? A kind of business speak that's very neutral, that isn't to have a lot of warmth and color and depth to it. And then how far to go with communicating somebody's more authentic language or posture. So I think it's maintaining a tension between those, or finding a place that they feel comfortable with. And I think we respond really powerfully to when we feel that authentic speaking, when we feel
Yeah.
someone's natural cadence, that rhythm. And I think it's just, for me, it's listening to somebody.
Yeah.
And how they communicate. You know, do they use 17 words to talk? Do they use 7? Do they go from topic to topic to topic? You know?
Yeah. And I think also working with Roberta, a communications company, somebody like you also can help people actually find their voice, because sometimes people don't know what their voice is until they actually work with a professional, and then it can just kind of spill out, and it's amazing. You know, like things we've worked on. You've interviewed me, talked to me, and written something that's what I talk about, but in a way that's written as a blog that's beautifully written, that I couldn't maybe get there on my own. So it's great work.
I think you bring up a really good point, and which is about time. And
Yeah.
you know, like I write every day. If I'm not well, I might not write, but otherwise I'm writing every day. I'm like pen on paper or whatever. So I practice it all the time. So it's going to come to me faster, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to calculate numbers that fast because I don't practice that. But writing, I practice. So if somebody can give me a chunk of words, I can streamline it into, you know, sort of linked thoughts that flow, because that's a practice I do all the time.
Yeah.
So it's
right.
it's also about, like, and then finding their voice is reflecting it back to them.
Yeah.
And someone feeling comfortable with it. It's just, I can do it faster because I do it all the time.
Yeah. I love it. You're right. Daily practice is huge. All right, Roberta, you ready for a quick speed round?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Favorite book and why?
Well, the favorite book is usually the one I just finished. I'll tell you, the book I just finished is by James McBride, who wrote about a memoir of his mother, because his mother was a fascinating person who was born in Poland, raised in the South, an Orthodox Jew, who escaped from the South and ended up marrying 2 Black men and having a dozen children with them and becoming a Christian. So it's a fascinating, beautiful memoir.
That
and
sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Keep going.
Yeah. Define yourself in one word.
Fun.
I
don't know if that's one word.
So
hard.
What
I don't know.
One piece of wisdom that your mom or dad, my Aunt Mooney, Uncle Milton, would give to you today?
They'd probably tell me to get organized. One other was, don't be stupid.
Uh-huh.
That was his advice.
Your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be stupid.
Yeah. Listen,
work hard.
That's some sound advice.
Right.
Yeah. So wait, I want to recap on a couple of things that you talked about, which I think are really important. you know, setting time aside, whether it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes a day to write and study your craft, and really finding that that sacred time, and understanding, understanding kind of how you see the world, which I think is so important, and be open to the simple messages that come along your way, and also make sure that you are, simple in your messaging. Don't overcomplicate things. Give people things one thing at a time. You
Wait,
know, you're,
we
yeah,
just have to say, I know you want to recap this. We just have to say sometimes you have to go through a lot of muddle to get to that simple message. So it's
100%.
not
I think,
the
yeah,
simple message just like arises. Like,
correct.
yeah,
I think the simple message can take weeks or months. I mean, it's very difficult to get to the simple, but it requires a lot of work, and to accelerate the process. That's why I think you need to work with professionals like you,
right.
which I think you bring up a good point.
Yeah.
Warmth and authentic voice, and also helping people find their voice, I think is so key. And really, when you have a unique ability to spend time on it every single day, like you do, I think is so great. Roberta, tell everybody how they can connect with you and who your ideal clients are.
I can be reached. Am I going to just tell you my email?
Sure.
My email is rlevine163.com. I check it all the time. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Roberta F. Levine. And those are the two best ways to
And give
reach
your
me.
email again because it broke up a little bit.
Okay, rlevine163 at Gmail.
All right. Roberta, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Yeah.
Oh, it was
You
a
have
great
anything else?
pleasure.
Yeah. So fun. I always love interviewing people, but when it's family, I love it even more. So thanks for your time and everything. And you know how much I love you and all your work that you do. So if Roberta can help you, please reach out to her. And thanks so much, Roberta. Thanks, Think Community. Talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Roberta.